the boots off, I can relax, go home and chill out for a few hours, and then do it all again tomorrow or later that day. Well, I get out. Fairly cool evening, not too bad. A little bit on the nippy side, but, it's still pleasant. Walk into my car, la-da-da-da-da-da-da, and unlock the door, pull it open, and it was pitch black in there. And I'm thinking, this is not good. This is not good at all. And I thought, I know it's a hopeless cause, but I've got to try it anyway. So I put the key in the ignition, because sometimes my dashboard craps out, and, it'll still start. Well, I turn it, and of course the battery light doesn't come on, the oil light doesn't come on like it does, the check engine light, all the pre-systems check that the computers go through in those cars. There was nothing. I couldn't even get the ignition to click. I thought, oh, wonderful. Now how am I going to get home? Because I don't even know what's wrong with it, even though I was pretty sure it was the battery. But at that point, I was so tired I couldn't even think straight. So I slammed the door as hard as I can, which doesn't solve anything, but I was mad. A couple of friends of mine come out, Eric and Lane. And Eric says, well, I don't have any jumper cables, but I can get you a ride home. It's like, well, okay, that might be a possibility. Well, Lane says, I've got some jumper cables handy. Well, now, I have some, but it'll take me a while to get through it, because I am a pack rat, and I admit that. So Lane gets his cables out, hooks it up to his truck, hooks it up to my car battery, and the terminals of my battery are really bad. They've always been that way, and I should have cleaned them years ago when I had the battery changed. Hooks it up, and still nothing. Still can't get the dome light to come on or anything. So he messes around with it. He's like, here, let me try one more thing. So he revs up his engine a little bit, to kind of get a little extra juice down the line. Well, that works. Lights come on, and I'm thinking, okay, there's some hope here. So I move some of my crap out of the way, climb into the driver's seat, literally. I feel like a oversized NASCAR driver. I get in and start the engine, and it idles for a little bit, and warms up. Things are going good. And so I drove around for about an extra 10-15 minutes to make sure that the battery recharged and got all that done. And then I thought, how am I going to fix this door? I don't even know what's wrong with it. So I tried pushing all my weight against it. And I thought, I weigh over 200 pounds and I can't even get this thing to budge. This thing is jammed tight. So I thought, well, screw it, I'll just get out, worry about it tomorrow when I get some daylight, see what the problem really is. Well, I get up the next morning, and what had happened was when I slammed the door, I managed to push the plastic molding and all that stuff away from the metal frame. So now every time you try to open the door, it pulls that apart a little bit more. So now I've got to figure out how to get that panel open, so I'll probably have to get a crowbar or something down at the bottom on the inside and try to pull that out. So that's what I've got to work with there. But the good news is my car is charged up and rare to go once again. And a funny thing is, all through that, I was thinking back to the podcast that I'd done a few days prior to that, talking about keeping your cool in situations like that, where things are seemingly against you. But in that moment, I slammed the door, and I was thinking that, but I did it anyway, and I ended up jamming my door, making matters worse. So I'm trying to get control of my temper, but every once in a while, it just sneaks out there, and I'd let it go. But I am better at it. I am getting better at it. So Lane and Eric, thank you very much for saving my neck the other night. I owe you both quite a bit. All right. First round of warm beers is on me. Okay? Sounds like a good deal to me. Anyway, that's what happened there. So Deer Killer is mobile again. Over the weekend, I can't believe this slipped my mind last week, in that, of course, I talk about my dad periodically on this program. Relationships between fathers and sons sometimes can get a bit complicated. And sometimes sons end up being more like their fathers than they care to admit. And I've noticed that since my dad's death, that I've adopted a lot of the things that used to bug me about him, because I've grown to understand my dad a whole lot better. But anyway, I got to thinking, because this time of year, it's a time of mixed feelings for me. My dad was declared dead on my mom's birthday 12 years ago. And even though technically he died a half hour of the day before her birthday. And so, I get a little bit of melancholy at this time of year. It's not every year, but, you still feel his absence. And you realize that we really don't have that much time on this earth to appreciate one another, let alone to put aside our differences and still love one another and respect one another. With that being said, I got to thinking that the last time my dad and I went fishing by ourselves was 12 years ago last Monday, the 30th of September. And at the risk of really sounding like a Lifetime movie or something like that, it was one of the most perfect days of my life. There are moments in your life that are like markers for where time and space kind of stand still. And that's what that afternoon was like for a couple of hours for me. But there's also a funny side to this, because it's a Gunther story, and I want to relay it to you right now. That afternoon, my dad and I went fishing. My parents had a pond in their backyard that they had built 4 years prior to my dad's death, and stocked it with some of their neighbors' fish that he wanted to get rid of. Had a bunch of catfish in there. This thing was overflowing. And so my parents took a bunch of the fish and put it in there. Well, after 3 or 4 years, some of those young ones, was starting to get pretty good size. And my dad and I were talking, catching up on what was going on in our lives at that point. And also, Gunther was out there. Now, keep in mind, Gunther was a very young dog at this point. He would have been a little over 3 years old. His brother, an Akita named Shu, was also there. And generally speaking, Shu, if I was around in a situation like that, he would stay fairly close to me. Now, he would keep a distance. He'd keep an eye on us, make sure that we were all right. But generally, he was kind of a standoffish type of dog. But that's just the way Akitas are. At least this one was. Not to say he wasn't affectionate, but he was watching, because he was a good watchdog and a very good guard dog. And Gunther was off doing his thing, hunting out in the woods around the pond and stuff, chasing after frogs and things of that nature. Well, on the way down to the pond, my dad had dropped some hooks, and he wanted to change one of the hooks on one of his lines. But we couldn't find them, so he decided to go back to the shed, get some more, and I'd keep an eye on the lines. Now, at this point, we had a few bites, but nothing big. We had caught a couple of fish each. This is the only time in my life that I can remember that I outfished my dad. I had waited 20 years for that moment or more, and it finally happened. But I'm not gloating about that. Anyway, my dad went back to get some hooks, and just as he left, about 30 seconds later, he gets a bite on his line, and I'm starting to reel it in. And then I get a bite on my line, and I'm thinking at first, did our fish cross paths here, or did we catch the same thing? Or what's going on here? So I'm reeling in, reeling his line in, reel mine in, pick up one pole, put down the other, back and forth, back and forth. Well, along the way, I lost his fish because they were starting to swim into each other's path, and I couldn't get them out of the way because I was putting my pole under his line, and my fish was going north and his was going south. So I lost his fish and started reeling mine in. Well, Gunther is on the other side of the pond, and he sees all this activity going on. He hears the splashing, and dachshunds and fish, at least the ones I've been around, they go nuts when something starts splashing or there any kind of activity like this. Shu's standing up a little bit, wagging his tail, and he's kind of prancing like a horse, watching this commotion going on. Gunther comes running as fast as he can around the pond, and I'm thinking, no, Gunther, don't do it. I got it under control. I don't need your help. He really wasn't trying to help me. He was just trying to get to the fish, and I know what that was about because he wanted to check it out. So I grab the net with one hand, keeping a hold on the rod and reel with the other, and I put the net between my legs, hold it down until the fish gets closer, and I can reel it closer to the net. Now reeling this thing in. I was thinking, oh, this is a nice little channel cat. And it was about a 3 or 4 pounder. You know, it was good for fillets and stuff like that, little steaks. And I'm reeling this thing in, and about that time my dad comes back, and this was just after I lost his fish, and he sees Gunther going into the pond, swimming toward the fish, and my dad goes, I'd help you if I could. It's like, yeah, I know you could. And he just started laughing, I started laughing, and I'm reeling this thing in closer, and pretty soon Gunther is coming up on one side of the net, the fish is on the other, and I'm trying to pull the fish out of the path of Gunther, but I can't pull it fast enough because Gunther's getting caught in the wake, and of course that's giving him some momentum. So we're going around in a circle. I finally get the fish in the net, just pull it just right before Gunther gets to the net, put it up on the bank, take the hook out. Shu comes over, he's kind of checking it out because the dog loves fish too. I mean, Akitas love salmon. As a matter of fact, this dog loved fresh fish. Well, anyway, take the hook out of the fish. Gunther comes over and starts kind of snarling at it, pretend like he's fighting it. And I'm like, and Shu's over there trying to check it out, and then Gunther would nip at Shu's feet and stuff like, get away, get away, get away. I'm like, you two quit it. But this story may not mean much to you, but to me, it's just one of those moments that I will always treasure and always get a little sentimental. So I just thought you might find it amusing, but nothing else. It's just good to get it out there for posterity and for my family history. But that was 12 years ago last Monday. All right. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Now on to more serious things. Talk about the government shutdown. Of course, we're heading into the second week, it looks like, with no break in the stalemate at all, which is really annoying. Let's see here. A quick article I found in today's Kirksville Daily Express, and I wanted to relay it to you. And it's in regards to the government shutdown, so just bear with me for a moment as I retrieve it. I'm trying to remember which one it. One of the things, of course, with the government shutdown and all the 800,000 federal jobs that are essentially inert right now, across America, the government's work is piling up, and it's not just paperwork. It's old tires and red Solo cups littering a stretch of river in Nebraska. Food poisoning microbes awaiting an analysis in Atlanta. Charred wreckage of a plane in California, preserved in case safety investigators return. And it's the dead eagle in Wendy Pencil's freezer, just to name a few. This is from the Associated Press. As a matter of fact, I forgot to mention it last week. Remember about the bus crash that involved the church group? I think it was in, I want to say Kentucky or Tennessee, somewhere down in that area. Well, anyway, the National Transportation Safety Board can't investigate it because the feds are shut down. And now there are families that don't know specifically what caused the wreck, who was responsible. I mean, investigators are doing a pretty good job of figuring it out, the local investigators. But you don't have the feds in on this to verify or to clear up any mysteries here. And unfortunately, the crash scene had to be cleared out in order for traffic to resume through that region. So there's more cost right there. Well, Pencil tends to injure birds in her upstate New York home. When a bald eagle dies, she sends the federally protected remains to a special eagle repository near Denver that ships feathers and carcasses to Indian tribes for their sacred ceremonies. But the federal bird shippers are on furlough, while much of the United States government, like her fallen eagle, is on ice. A week into a partial government shutdown, some messy stuff is still stacking up. Toxic waste is on hold at the Environmental Protection Agency's Superfund sites, although work continues as those